Welcome to the first in this new series of podcasts. If you're new to me and to this channel, my name is Glenn Moore, and I am proposing to do a series of videos on a number of topics. Some of you may have seen my introductory video on YouTube, which I posted a week or so ago. You'll find it on the channel. And what I am intending to do, what I'm planning to do, is to share information, my own experiences, dare I say, some of my acquired wisdom, and hopefully there will be some value to you in what I share. Obviously, one size doesn't fit all, and everyone will, in their own way, derive value or not, and that's fine. Anyway, thanks for joining me and thanks for listening. Before I start on today's topic, I just wanted to say that there are, as I think we all know, or there is rather, considerable information available to all of us these days. It can be overwhelming. Some of it arguably or potentially is very important. Some, you might say, is not important at all. And that is fine. That is the way it is. So what I want to say is that the determination, or rather discernment, of which is which for you is important, which isn't, is something that is part of your wisdom, your truth, and guided by your own path in life. What I'm doing here is making information available which you can take or leave as you choose, and that's fine. This is not about me convincing any of you about anything. It's about sharing information which I have come across or researched, or it's just landed with me, as it were, and I feel it's worth sharing. So with all that said, let's kick off with today's topic, which is medbeds. So, how many of you have heard of medbeds? Maybe most of you, possibly not all of you. I'm going to do a very sort of short introduction to the medbed, basically by saying that supposedly it is a advanced technology that is able to cure and heal all disease, all illness. It is also said that it is able to replace limbs and to restore certain body parts. This is what has been said, if you like, in a number and from a number of sources that I've tapped into over the last few weeks and months. And I'm intrigued, as I'm sure you are, to know more. If you look at Wikipedia, you'll see that medbeds are described as a conspiracy theory. Yeah, that's that old chestnut. No mention of who the conspirators are, but they obviously, or those behind Wikipedia, clearly don't want us to know about medbeds, so I'm going to address that very thing today. So what do they look like? They're like sort of pods, you could say. They're like metal beds. I'm probably not describing them very well, with covers like a glass or perspex cover, which you lie in, and they embrace, or they are using sound frequency. It's possible to channel music through them, and they are in effect a holographic type quantum technology that is basically able to rearrange or adjust our DNA in such a way as to create wellness or well-being, and that's a very simplistic overview, but I think you get the picture from that. Back in the 1930s, there was a guy called Royal Raymond Rife who discovered a technique for healing using sound frequency, and many people are saying that that is the similar thing to what is now being used in the medbeds. I think it's almost certainly more advanced than that. But just to give you a little bit of background, Royal Raymond Rife discovered this technique for healing and was able to heal people of so-called fatal diseases in the 1930s. Certain machines have actually been developed using his methodology, and ultimately you could say the medbed is the eventual big thing that sort of comes out of that has been derived and grown out of that. Obviously, there's a lot of years have passed by since he was doing his thing. Needless to say, he was not very popular with the establishment, and eventually, I believe, his work was basically discredited and to some extent destroyed. So those who benefit from it didn't benefit from it as orthodox medicine kicked in again. And this is obviously not unusual. There have been many examples of this. But Royal Raymond Rife was, if you like, the trailblazer to some extent of this technology. Now, you may have heard of, or you may have seen, the film Elysium, which was back in 2013, I believe, with Matt Damon and Jodie Foster. I may be wrong about that, but I think they were the principal stars or the principal actors in the film. And I believe medbeds are actually portrayed in that film. So if you want a closer look, go to that film. I think they're actually even featured in the trailer. So that's only 2 minutes or so and maybe worth taking a look. I also believe that a type of medbed was featured in some of the Star Trek episodes. I'm not a Trekkie myself, but if you are a fan of Star Trek, you may remember something being portrayed along those lines. Anyway, let's bring it up to date. What can these medbeds do? As I said, allegedly they can adjust our DNA, give us an upgrade. They are supposedly able to reverse aging. They are able to effect limb replacement, as I've said. Interestingly, they can also be used, I believe, for meditation, astral projection, and remote viewing. Maybe you want to look into this yourself. There are, however, certain things that I believe they cannot do, or rather, there are some restrictions. This is just my take. And this applies not just to medbeds, but to healing modalities as a whole. Many people tell me that, they have healing affirmations or they do healing work, alternative healing work, etc. And there's no noticeable effect, their condition continues, what have you. I think it's important to know and to remember, or maybe this is new to you, but I'll share it, that many of us come into this world with soul contracts. And in fact, I believe all of us come into the world with soul contracts. And those soul contracts may include a certain condition, a certain disease maybe, or a certain condition of the body which we agree to take on as part of our incarnation here. Now, if that is the case, it may be that whatever healing modality you use, including a medbed, will not actually do the trick, because you're not supposed to heal in that way, if you follow what I'm saying. I appreciate that this may be new to some of you, and it may be a little, let's say, radical, but I believe that to be true, and it may well explain why some people don't get well, etc. The other thing is a thing called secondary gain, which those of you who have studied or are practicing NLP will know very well. Secondary gain is a situation where a person actually gains from having the illness in some way, whether it's getting more attention from their family and friends, whether it's some other thing, maybe they get money, maybe they get something which they're unwilling to give up. And so the illness actually suits them, if I can put it that way, to maintain it in spite of the pain or suffering that they may experience. Now, that may sound odd to many of you, but it's true. There are many examples. I won't give examples here, but it is something to bear in mind. If you're gaining something from your illness or condition, then it may well be that may well explain why you're not getting better, why you're not restoring your health into a perfect condition. The other element is karma. There may be a karmic element involved to your condition that may or may not be related to the soul contract. It may be karma incurred in this incarnation, or something again that is part of your life path which you've come here to experience, which is fine. That's great. So, obviously, the big question here is, well, if these medbeds exist, and I guarantee they do exist, then why aren't they available? Why aren't we having them now? There are a number of reasons. One obvious reason is that there are certain vested interests, let's call them, that would rather not, or rather that the public not know about these healing modalities, these healing beds, if you can call them that. This was illustrated to some extent in a recent podcast I watched with Michael Salla on his Exopolitics channel, where he talked about someone he knew who was told that certain galactics had made an agreement with the elites on this planet, the so-called elites, to delay the release of medbeds to the public. Largely, it is said, because of the potential economic consequences. It's goes without saying that if medbeds are suddenly introduced, then there is going to be a considerable backlash to the orthodox medicine system, to the pharmaceutical companies, to even to alternative healers, because people will, in time, maybe not immediately, because the thought of a medbed or getting on a medbed may be a bridge too far for some people, but ultimately, when they are accepted, they could well become the principal modality for healing on this planet. And that's not surprising, given, as I say, the potential of what they can do and how they can be used for the good of all. Now, the medbeds are, according to my sources, already available to the military in certain countries, particularly in America, and have been used by them. Some people have reported actually having an experience on a med bed, and if you type med beds into YouTube, you'll possibly find one or two examples of people who share their experience. So that might be worth a look if you're curious to find out more and to, do some research for yourself. There have also been suggestions that some med beds have been released into certain hospitals in the world, including in this country, in the UK. I cannot verify that. I do not know that. It may be just a rumour. Those of you possibly who work in hospitals may know. And if you do, by all means leave a comment in the comment section below the video, because I'm sure that if you do know, other people would be interested, other people watching this would be interested to know who and where they are. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about in relation to medbeds is the correlation with the Ascension process which we're going through. As I'm sure most of you watching this will know, humanity is going through a process of raising its vibration, largely as a result of the intense energies coming onto the planet, which are pushing us in many ways to be more loving, to be more kind, to be more considerate, more compassionate, to be less hostile, as it were. Now, I know there are certain parts of the world where there are hostilities, and that is playing out, and that's what it is. But generally speaking, this is what the energies are doing. And the energies are pushing us into this, what I call a transition, into our transition into what is commonly called the fifth dimension, what I call fourth density, based on the teachings of the law of one. So one of the questions that has come up is, well, will the med beds be available before the Ascension process kicks in or is effective? Yes, I believe they will, because they are part of this transition. And the transition to fifth density, or rather the fifth dimension, fourth density, is also a transition to our becoming aware of our greater potential, humanity becoming aware of its greater potential. And that potential will, of course, include our ability to heal ourselves. So this is why I think, the med beds, if you like, for me, are part of a valuable transition to get us to a place where we can understand that, healing is much more than taking a pill or having surgery, that sort of thing, what we've, as it were, been taught to believe, some would say conditioned to believe. And that, there is an element of healing that is far more advanced than that. Ultimately, that advancement, I believe, will lead us to a place of self-healing, and that is the ultimate. That is the ultimate goal. That is, what I believe, and of course, you can believe, what you wish. A lot of people poo-poo self-healing, again, I think this goes back to what we've been taught and what we've been led to believe. But remember, there is a thing called the placebo effect. A lot of us, I think, tend to forget the placebo effect. We all know that the placebo effect works. Whatever you think of orthodox medicine or alternative medicine or any other form of medicine or healing modality, the placebo effect we know works. And ultimately, we can be our own placebo, which is our goal, or if you like, our route to self-healing. That's my take anyway. And that can only be great. That can only work for us all, for the greater good. It may take time, obviously. There will be a lot of mental as well as emotional and physical adjustments to be made. But I really believe that is possible. So the med beds, as I see it, are what I would call a stepping stone to that place of self-healing. Anyway, that's my take on med beds. I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions or comments, do feel free to put them in the comments section below. Thank you for listening, and I hope that it has given you some value, and catch me again next time for another podcast. Thanks again for watching.